So you may be asking yourself, well, how do I create a sitemap? Well, let's jump in. The first step is anatomy. Let's learn about anatomy. Essentially, the sitemap will consist of all these linked pages. So we have this as our page. I mean, they don't need to necessarily look like this. Like I said before, with other things, it's all about what works for you, what best represents. And right now, I just kind of using a little card. You don't necessarily use this when I'm creating this site. This is the main card. And within the anatomy, you have a reference number. People like to use reference numbers. This really can help. When you're creating actual wireframes afterwards, you can use that same reference number. You don't necessarily need to. I know a lot of people that like to, but it's a preference. One thing that is definitely needed is a label. So this label over here is definitely going to be needed because it will let us understand what the page name is. That is what we really want to know. So what you want to do is you want to start with your home page. The rows that follow afterwards are by the highest priority. So I say rows because typically people, when they build a sitemap, they're building it from top to the bottom. You can build it from the left to the right. Like I said before, it's all preference. So I'm going to do left and right. Next step is the same map will be your primary, secondary, and territory pages and so on. So right now we have a primary page. And if we were thinking about our current client, we have our home page and you could access a category on that page, and that will be our subtitle. And afterwards, you may be able to select a subcategory, and that will be our secondary level. It could go on and on. So this is our primary and secondary, and this is ground zero. Now, you could use a legend if you like. It's totally up to you. That's another preference. If you're sharing it with a lot of people, it may help if you have a lot of symbols, if you have colors. I would like to use colors because it helps to signify whether a page is public or a member only. So totally up to you. It really helps to get through what you're trying to say with your product and your setup. Use a legend. If there are two types of sitemaps, this is a flat sitemap, and this is better suited for smaller to medium-sized products. I'm thinking maybe like 10 to 100 pages, maybe even less. To be honest, there are 4 or less vertical levels. You notice that there's only 2 vertical levels here, and that's probably what we're going to be using. We're creating our sitemaps. But there are 4 less vertical level, and they all help enhance the discover of the content because there are fewer level to click through. So you want to use this for smaller products. You don't want people to be going too deep unless it's absolutely necessary. The next step of sitemap is a deep sitemap. So these are better suited for larger sized sites, and they help house a lot of information. So we're talking like hundreds and maybe pages like a government website, maybe a huge e-commerce website. They can get around to 5 vertical levels, which is large. I mean, we are at 4 here. You can imagine the amount of pages that you can produce. This ultimately make it harder to discover. So you would need to think about the different ways for user to get to places like menu, sites. And so deep sitemaps, use them for larger products. Don't use it for small ones. So why are they so valuable? Well, they help you plan usability, and it provides a full overview, which can really be useful and simplify and trim unnecessary pages. But really, when you build a sitemap, you can also place content where user can find. It results in the creation of navigation hierarchies and categorization of your product. You get a good understanding of your navigation. You can calculate the amount of content you need and gives you a good understanding of your scope. So, sitemaps are incredibly useful. You may not create like the final sitemap, and that shouldn't bottleneck you in terms of starting wireframes, or even like sketching and user flows. But you should really start one to get a sense of what your entire navigation scheme is going to look like. Let's jump right in, Figma, and start building one. We're going to be talking about sitemaps today. Before we begin this tutorial, though, I want to show you what exactly we're going to learn within Figma and what we're going to build. We're going to learn a bunch of different things. We're going to learn how to build these types of assets for our sitemap and are going to be reusable for you in the future. And today we're going to make non-component versions. We're going to learn how to use components. And that's going to be super fun. Trust me, it's going to make your workflow and your life just so much more easier. Then we're actually going to build our own sitemap as well. So you're going to need a couple of things before we can actually start building. You're going to need, obviously, you need Figma, but you're going to need the AutoFlow plugin. So if I go into my plugins, just by right-clicking, this is what AutoFlow looks like. If I were making a rectangle, it basically allows you to connect one layer to the next. Kind of like how we did before. We're going to use that a lot. If you haven't used this plugin yet, definitely get it before we start. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to teach you how to create these assets that I've used for our sitemap. Now, these are some great assets. I'm going to run through them really quickly to explain why we have a bunch of different colors and what they mean and what the container is over here. And these are actually going to be components. We're just making some reusable pieces here. If you're not comfortable with components yet, we don't have to jump into that just yet, but I will teach you. Now, I have decided to show the sitemap in a couple of different ways. Now we have a page. I'm going to break it into pages and the links that are available within that. We have public links, and that means links that everyone can see, even if you're not signed in or registered. We have member-only link. These are links for people who are specifically registered with our product. We have more specific links for logging in, signing in, logging out, that kind of stuff. And we have yellow and indicate the outside links, links that are going to push you outside of the app or product. Ultimately, you may not use this for future projects. I think it's just great to have them like just ready. I'm going to get into how to build these. And this is the container over here on the right side. This is going to be house all these items. So let's jump right in. So actually I'm going to just take one of these just to show you what it looks like. This is essentially just a frame if we break it down so we can build it together. So I'm going to do is just use a text layer like I've just done. I press T, and easiest way to do that is just press T and click, and you have your text layer ready. So if I write, say something like link, and then after I wrap this within an auto layout frame, so I'm going to right click on it. And now I have my link frame. You can't actually see anything right now because there's no fill. But if we were to say press I to get the color picker and use the color picker on this little link, over here we can easily just copy that. So that's all I basically did. You can choose whatever style you like. I'm going to actually stretch this out a bit. And I'm going to add a border radius to this. So I have a 4 pixel. I'm going to make this a tad taller, so I use fixed heights on things like that. It really depends on if it's going to run to 2 lines. It may be wise not to, for something like this though. Like a button, makes sense to use like a fixed height, but something that may run into 2 lines. I don't really like to take the chance because it will take, but so I will show you what it looks like. I'm actually going to keep this pretty simple. I'll make a copy. I'm going to just duplicate that to the side, and I will show you what that looks like when you have a fixed height and 2 lines. So let's jump right in here. We have the link, we have the auto layout frame. We don't need spacing between items. We just keep it pretty simple. 16 pixels spacing there, maybe 16 up top, and we'll add a stroke. So I'm going to press a little plus icon here, and there we go. We got our stroke. Now for the stroke, what I did, I just grabbed the color and I basically went down, don't make it too dark. Just look like it's kind of like a little bit darker version here. And you can adjust the width, and basically, there you go. You should also adjust like opacity if you want, or like the link. So the text here, I'm going to adjust the opacity of 75%, and that is essentially the link. Now let's actually remove this one and make a copy from this since we have it already. If we had 2 sentences that are on 2 different lines, this is a very long link. So if we have a very long link, we set that to fill the container and we shrink it, you know. The actual orderly container, if we were to say fix height and then copy that text over here, make sure it's set to fill the container. When we have this issue where this is a fixed height, it's not going to grow with this anymore. So definitely make sure that if things are going to go to a second line, you know, you don't have to set it to a fixed height. And that's essentially how you create these individual links. So you can just give them different colors. I like to do that personally because it comes to the actual page container, though. This one's a little bit more. Let's take a look how it's built. First of all, I'm going to take the right out. So you can basically Command C, Control C, or Control C, you know, you can just drag it out there. Command V is going to paste it underneath there, but you can take it out. And I have my links actually set up in an auto layout container. So in there, only have a spacing of 8 pixels. And within that container are my links. Then I have another layer that's right here. So that is just like my page title. Really simple stuff. Now, this is the part that is a bit difficult. I've done here, I've taken a look at it. It create another auto layout container with these traffic. So these are just circles. We have green, yellow, and red. Basically, it's literally just grabbing the ellipse tool, which is so make a copy. It just mimic the top of a browser. So really simple stuff. Then you can group it. And then we could frame it again into like an auto layout frame and call it our header. I know I'm moving a little quickly here, but I just want to give you a good understanding. I'm going to grab the color picker with, and then click on this just to get color. And that's basically it. I mean, it's all there really is to mimicking this header. Once we have the header, we can take the rest of our content. We're going to take everything, and you guess it, press Shift is going to throw it in auto layout frame. And now we have our frame here. And now we can do a bunch of different things. First of all, I'm actually going to set the fiddle to white. I'm going to also add a stroke like I have here. The stroke will be, say, 2 pixels. I want to match the color. Then I have for the header. Another thing I want to do is I want to ensure that this has a nice border radius. So I'm just going to slap something quick on there, and it's going to click content radius, but because the header background is bleeding off the frame and we haven't clipped it. So now if we clip it, it's hidden. Now we have the issue of these things. Now you can't just set the padding within, because if I were to do that, it would also create padding for here. So the best way to handle something like this is to actually wrap these two into their own container. So I'm going to use Shift A and set this new container within here to fill. I'm going to select all the contents within. You can see my layer is opening up here. I'm going to use Control or Command A to set them all to fill the container. Now we have everything filling the container. We can actually set the different padding and spacing between. So 16 pixel, I'm going to just have that as the padding here. I'm going to set 16 pixels here. And 16 pixel at the bottom and the top, and then you can go into your frame. Finally, your top level page container has the name of the frame, 1, I think it is, and you can remove the padding if you need to. And that's basically all there really is to creating this new page container. Now, the only thing here I have to fix is the header and set that to fill container. And there you have it. You can create your own version of this pretty quickly. I would say, if you have some time, you can put your own personal spin on it. But that's how you create your own reusable little asset for sitemaps.